Nicole Kidman is worth $250 million. She has over 120 awards. But at 58, she just admitted something nobody expected. After filming Big Little Lies, she threw a rock through a glass door. She couldn't stop shaking. During Babygirl, she begged the crew not to touch her anymore. The bruises on her body told one story. But what she revealed about waking up at 3 a.m. crying tells another. The truth about what Hollywood really did to her will leave you speechless. Nicole Kidman was born on June 20, 1967, in Honolulu, Hawaii. Her parents, Anthony and Janelle, were Australians who were in the United States on student visas. Her father was a biochemist and psychologist. Her mother was a nursing instructor and part of the Women's Electoral Lobby, an important feminist group. Politics was part of their daily life. They protested the Vietnam War and even joined protests in Washington, D.C. Nicole and her younger sister, Antonia, grew up handing out leaflets and debating world events at dinner. This shaped Nicole's sense of justice and stayed with her all her life. Even after they moved back to Australia when Nicole was 3, the focus on activism and world affairs continued. In Sydney, Nicole felt like an outsider. Her pale skin and bright red curls didn't fit the typical Aussie beach girl look. Other kids tanned and surfed. Nicole avoided the sun because she burned easily. She wanted to fit in. She wished she had blonde hair and a tan. Instead, she found her place in the theater. Acting classes at the Australian Theatre for Young People and the Phillip Street Theatre gave her a safe place to grow. On stage, she could hide her shyness and embrace who she was. That experience gave her strength and a depth of feeling that would follow her into every role. When she was 16, her mother was diagnosed with breast cancer. Nicole dropped out of school to help. She learned massage therapy, especially lymphatic drainage, to ease her mother's pain. Sitting in hospital rooms, she learned patience and compassion. It was a hard time, but it also gave her a sense of purpose. Her mother survived, and Nicole never forgot what those years taught her. Her first taste of performing was simple, playing a bleating sheep in a school play. Even as a child, she loved losing herself in dance, mime, and acting. Every tiny role mattered. Practicing taught her discipline. Being part of a team gave her confidence. These early steps showed her that stories could transform people, and that would become her future. One night, when Nicole was a teenager performing at the Phillip Street Theatre in Sydney, Jane Campion was in the audience. Campion would later become one of the most respected directors in the world, but back then she was just a film student. She was so moved by Nicole's performance that she wrote her a letter to encourage her. That small gesture stayed with Nicole forever. Later, they would work together on the film The Portrait of a Lady in 1996. Campion had seen something in Nicole long before the world did. Her big breakthrough came with Dead Calm in 1989. Nicole was only 21, playing Ray Ingram, a brave young woman trapped at sea with a dangerous stranger. Critics called her performance full of tension and raw energy. The setting was tight and tense, forcing her to use every skill. Audiences and critics were captivated. The New York Times even named Dead Calm one of the 1,000 best films ever made because of her. This was the moment Hollywood began to notice her. The film was shot on the Great Barrier Reef and had a small budget, but it took off. It earned over $7 million worldwide and showed everyone Nicole could lead a movie. Dead Calm was her ticket to Hollywood. Producers and directors started calling. It changed her career overnight. Not long after, screenwriter Robert Towne saw Dead Calm and showed it to Tom Cruise. Cruise was looking for a co-star for Days of Thunder, 1990. They offered Nicole the role of Dr. Claire Lewicki. The film was a big Hollywood hit, earning $157 million worldwide. Days of Thunder introduced Nicole to America and made her a star. But long before all that, Australian kids already knew Nicole as Judy from BMX Bandits. That 1983 film followed three teens caught up in a wild chase. Nicole was only 15. The film earned $124,649 in Australia and became a cult classic, inspiring kids to ride BMX bikes. Nicole even did some stunts herself. BMX Bandits was directed by Brian Trenchard Smith and shot by John Seale, who would later win an Oscar for cinematography. Even then, Nicole stood out. In 1987, Nicole showed her serious side in Vietnam, a TV miniseries. She played the rebellious daughter of a politician and aged from a teenager to an adult across 10 episodes. Her performance was so strong that she won the Australian Film Institute Award for Best Lead Actress in a miniseries. Vietnam was praised for its honesty about the war. Nicole's role earned her respect at home and showed she was more than a light, fun actress. Nicole Kidman first met Tom Cruise in 1989 on the set of Days of Thunder. She was 22. He was 28. They fell for each other quickly. Within a year, on Christmas Eve in 1990, they got married in a small ceremony in Telluride, Colorado. Cruise had only just finalized his divorce from Mimi Rogers, so everyone was watching their romance. Kidman and Cruise became one of the most famous couples in Hollywood. Together, they appeared in 3 movies: Days of Thunder in 1990, Far and Away in 1992, and Eyes Wide Shut in 1999. Early in their marriage, Kidman had an ectopic pregnancy, which was heartbreaking. That led them to adopt 2 children, their daughter, Isabella Jane, in 1992, and their son, Connor Anthony, in 1995. They hoped to build a family despite their pain, and those adoptions felt like a new beginning. But their story would not last. In 2001, after 11 years together, Cruise shocked the world by filing for divorce. The news was everywhere, and people in Hollywood weren't kind. Many whispered that, without Cruise's star power, Kidman was finished. Even Kidman remembered hearing people say, "Oh my God, it's over for her now." The entertainment industry, which had once embraced her as part of a golden couple, seemed to turn away overnight. Kidman herself later spoke honestly about this dark time. "My life collapsed," she admitted. "People ran from me because suddenly it was, 'Oh my God, it's over for her now.'" She felt lost, like her identity had been built around being Cruise's wife. "I wasn't there as Nicole. I was there as Tom's wife," she said. The divorce shattered her confidence. She felt isolated, unsure if anyone would work with her again. For a while, the phone didn't ring. Offers dried up. She wasn't sure if she'd ever work again. But Kidman kept going. Acting became her escape. Even though she felt damaged, she put everything into her work. It was during this painful period that she gave some of her most powerful performances. In 2002, she won the Academy Award for Best Actress for The Hours. Holding the Oscar was a bittersweet moment. "I was the loneliest I'd ever been," she admitted. The pain went beyond her career. After the divorce, her adopted children, Isabella and Connor, decided to live with Cruise in Los Angeles. Kidman moved back to Australia, and the distance between them grew. "They live with Tom, which was their choice," she explained. "I'd love them to live with us, but what can you do?" The separation was made even deeper by the children's strong ties to Scientology, the religion Cruise followed. Kidman was labeled a suppressive person in Scientology, and that kept her apart from them. Nicole Kidman gave one of the most powerful performances of her career in The Hours, 2002, but very few people knew what was going on inside her at the time. In 2001, she had just gone through a painful divorce from Tom Cruise after 11 years of marriage. Kidman was feeling lost and depressed. In a BBC Radio 4 interview, she explained that she felt not in my body, as if she were floating outside herself. That emotional state made her an open vessel for Virginia Woolf's pain. Woolf, like Kidman at the time, was trapped in her own sadness. Kidman later said that Woolf's struggle came through her because she was so vulnerable. The sadness she felt in real life blended with her character's sorrow, and that gave her performance a raw honesty that audiences could feel. One of the most haunting parts of the movie is Woolf's suicide scene. Woolf fills her pockets with stones and walks into a river. Kidman refused to use a stunt double for this. She wanted it to be real. She put stones in her pockets herself and walked into the cold water over and over again. Kidman recalled, "I put the rocks in my pocket and walked into the river, over and over again." The director, Stephen Daldry, was shocked but supported her choice. The film was released in December 2002, and her commitment left a deep impression on everyone who was on set. The realism of that scene, especially knowing what Kidman was feeling inside, is part of why people still talk about it. Daldry knew Kidman was in a fragile state. He was gentle with her during production, adjusting the way he directed to make sure she felt safe. Kidman later shared that he was very delicate with me because he knew that. This was rare on a big-budget Hollywood set, where most people focus only on the end product. Daldry understood that she was going through something serious, so he created a supportive environment. It allowed her to dive into Woolf's pain without losing herself completely. By the time Kidman won the Oscar for Best Actress in March 2003, she was at the top of her profession. But inside, she was still aching. She later admitted, "I probably don't consider danger enough, especially when choosing roles like Woolf." On the night of the Oscars, she felt numb rather than triumphant. Even with the award in her hands, she was completely overwhelmed, emotional, shaking. When the parties ended, she was alone in her hotel room, eating takeout on the floor. That golden statue was a symbol of her talent, but also a reminder of all the pain she carried. The timing of the role and the divorce was impossible to ignore. Kidman explained that her depression and her divorce had left her hollow. That emptiness made her even more able to take on Woolf's sadness. She described herself as an open vessel, as if she had little left to protect herself. "I was in a place myself that was removed, depressed, not in my own body," she said. "So the idea of Virginia coming through me, I was pretty much an open vessel for it to happen." The result was a heartbreaking performance that showed what happens when an actor truly disappears into their role. It was also a rare look at the cost of that kind of immersion. As Kidman was dealing with these personal struggles, another storm was brewing in her life. In March 2003, the British tabloid Daily Mail ran a shocking story. It claimed she had an affair with Jude Law during the filming of Cold Mountain in Romania the summer before. Law was married to actress Sadie Frost at the time, and they had 3 young children. The article hinted that the affair had destroyed Law's marriage and accused Kidman of lying about it. The Sun and other papers went even further. They said she had tempted him to cheat, making her sound like a deliberate homewrecker. Readers were captivated by the juicy gossip, especially because the shoot had taken place in a remote Romanian village, far from the usual press. Law moved out of his family home just before the article was published, which only fueled the rumors. Kidman was devastated by the accusations. Her lawyer, Gideon Benaim, told the court that the stories had caused grave damage to the claimant's personal and professional reputation, leaving her embarrassed and upset. The damage was serious. She was worried that her work would be overlooked and that her future career could suffer. Even worse, All this happened just as she was preparing for the Academy Awards. The scandal hit the papers in early March, right before the Oscar voting ended. Instead of celebrating her nomination, Kidman had to fight off ugly gossip. The timing felt like a nightmare, and there was a real fear that it could cost her the Oscar. But Kidman decided not to stay silent. She took the tabloids to court, and they eventually had to admit they were wrong. On July 31, 2003, the Daily Mail and its parent company, Associated Newspapers, publicly apologized in the High Court and paid Kidman substantial damages and legal costs. The Sun followed suit in October, with its editor Rebecca Wade and journalist Victoria Newton also issuing apologies and agreeing to pay damages. Even the Sunday Telegraph apologized quickly to avoid going to trial. Kidman could have kept the settlement money, but she gave it to FARA, a charity that supports abandoned children in Romania. By standing up for herself, Kidman proved that even one of the most famous actors in the world could fight back and win. The whole experience was incredibly painful, especially at a time when she was already vulnerable. But winning those lawsuits showed her strength, and giving the money to charity turned a horrible moment into something positive. When Nicole Kidman turned 40, everything changed. It wasn't her talent or her fame that shifted, it was Hollywood. She had spent decades building an award-winning career, but hitting 40 was like hitting a wall. Kidman was told, "That's it. You've passed that period where it's all going to be fine." The message was harsh and simple. Once you're over 40, Hollywood is less interested in your stories, your ideas, or who you are as a woman. That attitude wasn't just talk. Roles started to dry up. Studios weren't calling. Fewer job offers and a notable drop in attention was putting it lightly. One day, she was a top star. The next, she felt invisible. Scripts disappeared. Meetings didn't happen. Even someone like Kidman, with her long list of hits and awards, wasn't spared. That silence wasn't just professional. It felt personal. Kidman admitted that she thought about walking away completely. She had given everything to the business, and suddenly it felt like nobody wanted her. She even thought about putting her career aside and focusing only on family. After all, she had just given birth to her daughter, Sunday Rose, at 41. That moment felt like an ending. Kidman thought, "Oh well, this is where I go now." That feeling ran deeper than sadness. It was as if her talent no longer mattered. Industry people told her to her face that they weren't interested in your storytelling or your ideas anymore. Ageism hit her head-on. For Kidman, the insult wasn't subtle. It was clear and painful. But she didn't quit. Instead, she decided to fight back. Kidman started her own company, Blossom Films. If Hollywood wasn't going to give her good stories, she'd make them herself. It was more than just a business move. It was her way of saying she still had something to say. And she was right. Blossom Films went on to produce powerful, female-driven stories that proved that talent doesn't have an expiry date. Kidman also learned that even her personal life wasn't immune to challenges. When she first met Keith Urban at an event in 2005, she liked him right away. Urban, though, didn't call. "I had such a crush on him," she told Ellen DeGeneres in 2017, "and he wasn't interested in me. It's true. He didn't call me for 4 months." Urban was too shy and thought she was way out of his league. When they finally connected, they talked for hours. That one phone call led to a deep, lasting love. A year later, on June 25, 2006, they were married in Sydney. The wedding was beautiful and personal. Kidman wore a white Balenciaga gown and arrived at the chapel in a cream Rolls-Royce. Wagner's Bridal Chorus played as her father walked her down the aisle. The guest list was packed with famous names like Russell Crowe, Naomi Watts, and Hugh Jackman. But the focus wasn't on fame. It was on family and commitment. That commitment was tested early. 4 months after their wedding, Kidman staged an intervention for Urban. He was battling addiction, and she knew they had to face it together. Urban called that moment the most powerful act of love. It saved his life. Kidman was by his side through rehab. The experience shaped their entire marriage. Urban later wrote the song "Thank You" with the words, "I thank you for my life." Through all of it, Kidman never lost sight of what mattered most. Even with awards and career highs, she always put her family first. "If it were the choice between my family and my career," she's often said, "I wouldn't even bat an eyelid." That's why, when they had children, Kidman and Urban built a quiet life together in Nashville. They had Sunday Rose in 2008 and then Faith Margaret via surrogate in 2010. Kidman talked openly about the process, saying they chose surrogacy with lots of faith, literally. Naming Faith after her grandmother was a tribute to the strength of women in her family. Now they live in Tennessee, away from the Hollywood spotlight. They travel together as a little group, making every experience a family affair. Nicole Kidman gave everything she had to make Big Little Lies feel real. In one of the hardest scenes in episode 7, she was so emotionally and physically drained that she ended up lying on the bathroom floor. Her underwear was torn, and she felt completely exposed. Between takes, she couldn't move. The director, Jean-Marc Vallée, quietly covered her with a towel because she couldn't even get up. The way they shot those scenes, with no rehearsals and often unpredictable moments, made her feel raw and bruised. Her body was covered in bruises. Her mind felt shattered. This wasn't just acting. It was becoming part of her, and it left marks long after they stopped rolling. She felt humiliated and angry after those domestic violence scenes. It wasn't something she could easily switch off. Going home after a long day of playing Celeste, she would feel ashamed. It followed her. Even though she trusted Alexander Skarsgård, who played her husband, the work left her feeling unsafe inside. The process was brutal. Every take was emotionally dangerous. Even when she kept a brave face on set, inside she was crumbling. Playing Celeste didn't just show her the horror of abuse, it made her live it. That left her devastated, vulnerable, and full of a quiet rage that stayed with her. That rage exploded one day after a shoot. She came back to her hotel, but was locked out. Still full of the tension from the set, she grabbed a rock and threw it through the glass door just to get inside. Later, she was shocked at herself. She had never done anything like that before. But at that moment, she wasn't just Nicole Kidman. She was carrying all the pain of Celeste, and it pushed her over the edge. While filming these scenes, Kidman was often too shaken to move. Vallée would come and cover her up, knowing she felt too raw to speak. The crew stayed quiet. Everyone understood that those moments weren't just part of the show. They were part of what the role was taking from her. Kidman knew it too. She would later say, "I was obviously holding all that rage and what had been done." It was impossible to leave that pain on set. It followed her home. It stayed in her thoughts. And that was just one of the times Kidman was pushed to her limits. During Babygirl, years later, she felt exposed in a different way. The erotic thriller had scene after scene of intense sexual encounters with Harris Dickinson. Kidman was 57 and had never felt so spent. The film showed her as a woman consumed by desire, but what people didn't see was what it did to Kidman herself. On some days, she felt burnt out. She even told the crew, "I don't want to orgasm anymore. Don't come near me. I hate this." There were so many simulated orgasms that by the end, she never wanted to be touched again. And it wasn't just the sex. The scenes were raw and unpredictable. She and Dickinson would freestyle, pushing boundaries under the careful eye of the director, Helena Rhine. Even then, it left bruises on Kidman's body. She went home feeling empty and ragged. The role was meant to show a powerful woman losing control, and Kidman went so deep into the part that she had to pull herself back out. She felt safe with Rhine, though. That was what let her go so far. Rhine was a woman, and Kidman trusted that she wasn't there to exploit her. On set, people were gentle and respectful. That care kept her grounded even when the material was tough. She called the set protected and real, and despite how vulnerable she felt, she believed in the story they were telling. That belief was tested when she won the Volpe Cup for Best Actress at the Venice Film Festival on August 30th, 2024. It was one of the most important awards of her career. But that day wasn't a celebration. Her mother, Janelle Ann Kidman, had just passed away at 84. Kidman was still in Venice when she heard the news. She couldn't accept the award in person. Her statement was read aloud instead. "I'm in shock," she wrote, "but this award is for her. She shaped me, she guided me, and she made me." Even in her most triumphant moment, Kidman felt the weight of losing her mother. That loss came at a strange time. Babygirl had shocked everyone. Its frankness and raw energy earned a 7-minute standing ovation at Venice. On December 25, 2024, it hit theaters in the US and grossed over $50 million worldwide. That was 150% more than its $20 million budget. It was Kidman's most successful film in years, and one of A24's top 10 highest-grossing movies. Audiences were stunned by her performance as Romy, a woman caught between power and desire, and critics called it one of her most daring roles. Some even compared it to Eyes Wide Shut, but Kidman felt this was different. Babygirl left her feeling exposed and vulnerable, even after the cameras stopped. That exhaustion ran deep. Away from the spotlight, Kidman was waking up at 3 a.m. crying. She told British GQ in 2024 that she often thought about mortality, family, and the losses in her life. "It's a wake-up at 3 a.m. crying and gasping kind of thing," she said. Time felt like it was moving faster. Her parents had passed, her kids were growing up, and even though she had built an incredible career, all of it felt very fragile. She wasn't scared to say that fame hadn't shielded her from fear. When her mother, Janelle, died in 2024, it felt like the ground gave way. Kidman learned of her mother's death while in Venice. Even as she accepted the Best Actress award at the festival, all she could do was dedicate it to her mother. "She shaped me, she guided me, and she made me," Kidman wrote. Those words weren't just for the crowd. They were a message to a mother who had supported her from the very beginning, long before the bright lights and big screens. And though her career is still going strong, worth $250 million, with more than 120 awards to her name, Kidman knows every success comes at a cost. Her path has been full of risks. Every raw, honest performance has left a trace on her body or heart. Even as one of the most celebrated actresses of her generation, she carries the weight of what it took to get there. In her own words, it has been a long, beautiful, and often heartbreaking journey.